Okay, this video is a sort of a follow-on from the one I did a few weeks back where I replaced the belts and idlers in a Sanyo VTC-M20 machine. Someone commented on that last video to point out that there are actually some bits of the idler assembly missing from that machine. So what I've got here is another VTC-M20. It's actually in slightly better condition than the last one I worked on. This one's still got its front flap. But what I'm going to do in this video is essentially just repeat what I did in the last video, change all the belts and idlers. I've got a new belt kit from the same supplier on eBay, and hopefully in this case all of the idler parts will be intact, so it'll be a bit more of an effective repair. Additionally, I've got this, which is a Sanyo VTC-M05. I think it's 05, could be 05, I'm not really sure. But this is a Japanese model, and just sort of looking at the layout of the front panel and the general appearance of it, I suspect this is effectively the Japanese version of the M10, the European M10. Obviously, being a Japanese machine, it's going to be NTSC, but I'm hoping that the mechanism inside this machine is going to be similar enough to the European M machines that I'll be able to potentially raid this one for parts. So without further ado, let's get this one out of the way for the time being. And we'll just take the top off this one and have a look at that idler assembly and see if it looks complete. So it's just 4 screws to get the top off, 2 on each side. So with those 4 screws removed, 2 on each side, the top panel should just lift off at the back. Lift up a little bit and then slide it towards the back slightly, and it should just lift off. Now next we need to hinge this main circuit board up out of the way, and to do that there's 2 screws, 1 at each side. Actually probably don't need to do this to get at the idler assembly, but we'll do it anyway. That just hinges up out of the way, and then there's a latch mechanism which holds that out of the way, which is really nice. Next thing to remove is this screening plate here, which is 3 screws, 1 here, 1 there and 1 there. That middle screw is different, it's a shorter screw with a finer thread. And then that should just lift off. It's just snagging on the wires a little bit at the back there. And that gives us access to the loading mechanism. Okay, let's take this plate here off and see if we can have a look at the idler. So to remove this plate, there's 4 screws, 2 at this end and 2 at this end, but it does help to get access to this screw here if you just pop the front panel off. And to do that, just lift these 3 flanges up. There's a third one just out of shot here, and then the whole front panel should just come away like that. That just gives you slightly better access to this screw here. So with those 4 screws removed, you'll find that this panel still won't come off. That's because there's little metal pegs, again 2 at each side, that are just holding it in place, but it should just clip off now with a little bit of encouragement. It does actually help to use a flat screwdriver just to prise it apart slightly, just to release those clips, which I will do. So I'm just going to prise that very gently, just to try and release those clips. There we are. Ah, that does look a lot more complete. Let's get you a better shot of that. So as you can see, this idler pendulum looks a lot more complete than it did in the other machine. Down there you can see there is a split washer or a circlip, which was missing from the other one. Looks like there's another washer underneath that as well that was missing from the other one. And also there's a plastic peg attached to here, which was missing from the other machine. So this machine is looking a lot more complete. But before I do anything, I'm going to just power this machine up and stick a tape in and see what it actually does. So the machine is now powered up. Insert a tape. Actually looks fine, that's gone down properly. Let's try fast forward first. Let's just try that again. Yeah, I think that was the loading ring belt there at the back was slipping, so that's okay, we can change that. Let's try it again. It seems to be sort of working now, but I think initially when I did it that was slipping, so we will just need to change that. Let's just try rewind. That's actually working, isn't it? Fast forward and rewind seem fine, so just run this on to the end of the tape and see if it starts slipping. Yep, so that's made it right to the end of the tape without flinching. I did at one point think it was beginning to slow down, but I think that was just my imagination. I don't think that slipped at all. So let's just wind it back a little bit more. So we're pretty close to the end of the tape. And we'll try engaging. I can still hear that loading ring belt slipping, so that will definitely need to be replaced. But I'm not so sure about the idlers now. Let's just hit play and see what happens. Apart from the screech, which is normally just the tape path needing a good old clean, that actually seems to be working. Doesn't seem to be any problem with that at all, does there? Let's try stop. Yeah, that's looped the tape in nicely. Eject. Absolutely fine as far as I can see. Let's just put a... Is that not going down quite fully? No, that's not. That hasn't fully loaded the tape. I think that should be a little bit lower down. So I bet if I... Yeah, fast forward is now not working, but that's simply because the cassette hasn't gone all the way down. That's probably this. Oops, that's probably this belt down here. Let's eject the tape. There's something not quite right there. So if I give that a push down, yeah, that's now working. Okay, so that seems fine. I could just try picture search. Seems okay. Reverse picture search. That seems okay. So the only problem I could see there was when I loaded the tape, it didn't go all the way down, and I suspect that's because of that belt there. Let's just try it again. Yeah, that's struggling, isn't it? Yeah, see again, that hasn't gone down. So if we eject it, if I put it in and just give it a bit of a hand to go down, it sits down properly, and then it works. So I reckon if I just replace those two belts, I'm going to leave the idler alone. I don't think that anything needs doing to that. I'm just going to leave that as is. Change those two belts. I reckon that'll be fine. Okay, I've replaced both those belts now. So let's see what happens when we put a tape in. Seems a lot better. I'm hearing a little sort of a screeching noise. Not sure what that is, if that's the idlers slipping or... Which one's play? That one. That all seems absolutely fine. Eject's working fine. And it's now loading and going down properly every time. Yeah, that's sorted. A little sort of screeching noise just as it sort of stops any action. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm going to leave that now. I think that's working well enough that I just don't want to tamper with it anymore. So let's put it all back together. Okay, so that's another VTC-M20, nice machine. Let's get that out of the way temporarily. And we'll have a look at this Japanese machine, see if this is essentially the same mechanism. I suspect it probably is, but I don't know. Off in the same way. It's looking pretty similar so far. Yep, still looks pretty similar, except we haven't got the warning sticker on here, interestingly, that warns you not to remove the nut from the top of the head drum. And also we've got an earthing wire here. Now that hasn't been present in either of my two M20s. Is that simply because it's missing and it's meant to be there, or is that a feature of this machine? Don't know. Interesting. Still looking very similar so far. Let's get this plate off. Just remove the front panel first. This front panel off. Leverage here to get this off. And yes, that looks exactly the same. Let's give you a bit of a better look at that. And yes, that idler assembly looks to be exactly the same to me. This piece of metal here is a slightly different shape to the PAL versions, but I think that idler assembly is exactly the same. I can see the little wheel under there and the belt here, or you can't quite see the belt from that angle, but there is a belt there going around the motor spindle, so I think that idler is going to be compatible. So that's good. That means I can use this machine for spares. Although before I do that, just while I put it together, I think what I'd like to do is try this machine out and see if it works. Now, the problem I've got on that score is it runs on 100 volts, being Japanese model, and I don't have a 100 volt transformer. The only transformer I've got outputs 120 volts, which I think is a little bit high really. I wouldn't be comfortable running a device that's designed to run on 100 volts at 20% over voltage, 120 volts. That just seems a bit much to me. So what I will endeavour to do is either get hold of a variac or a 100 volt transformer and see if I can give this machine a little try before I start butchering it, because if it does work, I think I'd prefer to just leave it as is, to be honest, rather than raiding it for parts. I'm going to try and then find another scrap machine to repair the other M20. So I think that's my plan. I think the next thing I shall do is try and find some way of getting a 100 volt mains supply and see if this machine is likely to be a worker. So there we are, a Sanyo VTC-M20 and a Sanyo VTC-M05 or M05, I'm not quite sure which hopefully I will get working in a future video. Thank you very much for watching.